My name is Michael Coates. I'm a former firefighter, but I'm also a former soldier. And it's the stories from the individuals within this military community that I'm desperate to document. Our next guest is a former Royal Marine officer who deployed twice to Afghanistan. He fought in Nowzad, Sangin and Nadi Ali North. Medically discharged in 2012, he sought purpose and meaning. He now leads a team of veterans and first responders who deploy to disaster areas around the world. A Team Rubicon special. Richard Sharp. This is Declassified. Mate, you were born in Penzance, and in 2005 you moved away from that area and joined the Royal Marines as an officer.
Yeah.
Why the Royal Marines?
It was always going to be the Royal Marines. It's my dad was a corporal in the Marines through the 80s and 90s. So joining the corps pretty much defined me since I was about 9 or 10 years old. I sort of remember deciding about then everything I did through school and my A-levels was about joining the corps, and then pretty much everything since has been about having been in the corps and that sort of character forming experience that it was.
And it's because the officer training is different, isn't it? And it's a bit more prolonged, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, we do 15 months down at Limpston.
What's the normal?
9. So commando training is 9 months.
It's a big old difference.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? Why's the...
Well, because we do everything that the lads do, but then we've got to learn all the other stuff on top of it. Troop level tactics, writing orders, and just the extra. There's trips to America, learn to plan with them, more like firing, more planning, etc.
So this is the funny one. So December 2006, you pass out.
Yeah.
On a Thursday. On a Saturday, where was you?
Yeah, I was just straight into Afghanistan. So quick day at home to high five mum, dad, say goodbye, and then took over my command literally in contact in a desert leaguer out in Helmand Province.
Go on, just elaborate on that.
There was a unit level up. So unit is a battalion size. In the corps we call them units. I forget the name of it, but the guy that was leading my troop was there. We landed on the Chinook. We high-fived. He on the Chinook. I got off. He handed me a compass because I couldn't draw a compass from Bastion, so he gave me his navigating compass. And then there's just 30 steely-eyed Royal Marines looking at me. They've just been in a firefight that morning, and they're looking at me, this like wet-eyed pup who's coming to lead them in battle. I never felt so awkward in my life.
Did you want to be there though?
Yeah, you don't join the corps to not want to go on ops.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But so soon though, because that's like a baptism of fire. Was you ready?
Ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know at that stage. And we were mega excited. 8 of us deployed like that. And of course, you think you're 25 feet tall and 300 pounds and good to go.
All officers?
All officers, yeah. So officers train in a batch together.
Yeah.
And then the 8 of us went in to relieve the 8 troop commanders that were already there in 4-2. So we all did a similar kind of changeover.
I've not thought about it, but is that good? Is that like a best practice then? Is it to change everyone at once?
Probably not. But it's
okay,
the way the core
done.
officer structure is done. So if you don't get that wholesale replacement of troop commanders at the bottom, everything else doesn't move on at the right speed. So it affects like lieutenant colonel promotions at the top.
Because it is, you're not moving around. It's pretty tight. Yeah,
there's only 30 of us pass out every year, or 34 of us pass out every year. So it's a very small injection of new officers into the corps each year.
Yeah.
It's not like Sandhurst that's chucking them out every 2-3 months or something.
Yeah.
It's much smaller, so we've got to come in at once.
Yeah. What was Afghan like then as a young commander on the ground?
I mean,
in there, that was 2006.
Yeah, I was here at 5. So that was high intensity warfighting at the time. I was 22, going in. Spent my 23rd birthday out there in an ambush. It was the best time of my life. It absolutely formed me. But there's some really dark days in theatre. I was a bit nervous about coming here because I listened to you and Wisey. The raw storytelling that he gave, and it transported me back to that kind of place. But as a young man joining the Royal Marines, it was absolutely where I wanted to be, and it was on the op I wanted to be on with the people I wanted to be on, and it definitely created who I am now. Everything I am pretty much comes from that period of my life.
There's some. That time in. There's some RTV footage that I'm going to put on the notes. And I'll stick it out on social media, and that's really amazing. there's a few noticeable places where you've been, and that's, Nowzad was one of them. And there was a specific incident that happened in Nowzad that I want you to talk about, and that was an ambush that happened. And can you just kind of relive, or just retell that story?
Yeah, sure. So this is probably around February time, 2007. And we were based out of Fob Price, which is down in Goresh, to the bottom of the Sangin Valley. And we were the mobile offensive group for the whole of Helmand. So we were just driving up and down the Sangin Wadi, looking for the enemy, just spoiling for a fight into the green zone, because we called it combat recce at the time. We didn't know where they were, so we'd just get in, and where they attacked us from, we'd put a pin in the map and say, well, that's where the enemy lives. And Nowzad is further north, if you know the geography of the Sangin Valley. So it's between Sangin and Kajaki. And the FOB, the forward operating base, was getting hammered by the firing points in the village, and they couldn't ping the firing points, and they're having a tough time. So we came in around the back through Crocodile Ridge. It's a mountain range that separated Nowzad from the rest of the Helmand province, really, to the east. And there was only one mountain pass to get through. And yeah, probably February time, we pushed through the mountain pass. We assaulted into the village, cleared it out as much as we could. Then we had to come back out through the same mountain pass. And, to the infanteers listening, you never go over the same ground twice, ever. It's the golden rule. But it was only one way in and one way out, which makes you vulnerable. So we'd pulled out, and all was okay. And we'd pulled out into a desert liga. A liga is like a layup where you just rest up and you recharge, you eat, you rebomb the magazines and the artillery pieces. And then we were asked to push back in again through the same mountain pass. And I don't know what time of day it was. It was hot and it was sunny, which could have been any of the days in Afghan. And as a young troop commander, I was earning my spurs by then. I'd been in theatre for a while. I'd been in plenty of contacts. I did my pushback to the company commander. I was like, boss, me and the lads have been through that twice today. Going back through is not a good idea. And he said, I know, but we've got to go in, and that's the only way in, so in you go. So we fanned out at the bottom we got out the Vikings, the armoured vehicles, fanned out. And
How wide is that? How wide are you?
I mean, the valley floor was probably, 800 metres across.
Okay.
Maybe a bit less. But in reality, we were channeled onto a track about 30, 40 metres across.
Right, okay.
There was like a gully.
Yeah.
So whilst there was space, it was unusable. It was rock and boulder and unpassable. So we were in a mega narrow gully. So we formed an arrowhead, trying to show solidarity with the lads. That wasn't asking them to do something that I wouldn't. I went in the point section with them, and we just started patrolling. Gav Teese, Marine Gav Teese, he spotted something from metres and metres away, just sticking out of the ground, and stopped us. We had a look, and there was a wire, and we were being quite. This is before IEDs were a massive thing. We were being quite brave, and then we sort of pulled back a little bit to inspect it. And when the ECM bubble, the electronic countermeasure bubble from the vehicle, moved back that 1 extra centimetre, the ground just exploded in front of us. So it was obviously Taliban guy up in the hill pressing his mobile phone again and again and again until the bubble moved, and then.
What does the bubble do?
It blocks phone signal. It blocks electronic transmission to set off remote-controlled IEDs. So then the ground explodes, and then we've got hills both sides. Obviously, we're in a gully, and we've got a range in front, and we just get opened up on from all three places all at once. We're just fucking lying in the dirt, and the lads are scattered everywhere. It's chaos, because that initial ambush is just chaos, and you got to try and get control of it, and you got to organise something. But the ground is just exploding everywhere with rounds. And I took a round through the radio on my back. There was guys.
You did?
Yeah, straight through the radio. There was a guy in the top of a vehicle, and he had a round pass through the petrol tanks next to his face. He could feel the shockwave come past his face. Yeah. So just like all of these near misses, and lying in this gully, and I look over, and Corporal Kibler Matthews is next to me, and he's getting rocks, and he's putting rocks in front of his face to try and build like a wall, and I'm trying to dig a hole with my bottom lip, But you can't lay there. You're in the killing zone, and if you lay there, everyone is going to die. And you get to live up to your choices sometimes in life. It's easy to say you're a Royal Marine. Sometimes you got to live up to that choice. And at that point, we had to live up to our choices. And there was a very young Marine. I can't remember his name, but he was on the GPMG right at the point, and he just was tucked in behind this rock. But we had to get that GPMG firing. Because even if we couldn't engage the hilltops, the noise of outgoing automatic fire.
Why the GPMG?
Because nothing else had the range.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's more about noise. Like the noise of outgoing automatic fire gives people confidence to do stuff. So I had to make a dash forward to start pulling some rounds off because everyone was just pinned down. We couldn't communicate. And as soon as the GPMG started going, we could start getting some organisation. Normally you want to roll through an ambush, you want to push forward and roll over them, but these guys are up, hundreds of metres up.
Is that a nightmare situation to be in?
It's the worst of all positions.
Yeah.
Three-sided, they're above us, we're just lying there waiting to get shot like fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
And it was too narrow to create any kind of manoeuvre, so we just had to get out of there. And as soon as the gun was going, lads started getting confident. They're up and they're engaging at least the hillsides. We can't see them, but at least we engage in the hillside. We did a very long, I think they call it the Australian peel. So like everyone's firing, front man, peel, just down the gully. He gets to the back of the snake. He starts engaging, front man goes. We did that for what felt like a month.
Are you going back out?
Trying to get out of the valley.
Drawing out, yeah.
Yeah. But as we're trying to get out of the valley, they're moving around the hilltop to our side, so they're trying to pin us in now from the back. But the troops behind us, we had two troops in the rear, they can't engage forward because we're there. We're trying to bring artillery pieces in, but because of the way the mountain was like a ridge, they were on the backside of the ridge, so the artillery pieces were just hitting the front face of the mountain, just showering us in rocks and just the noise and the scream. So it was just a gunfight to get out, just men on men gunfighting their way out of a ridge, and we had to do it quick because they were trying to come around the back. And yeah, eventually we got out, and we all got out. People had bullets with their radio, like nicks in their clothes, through the petrol tanks. Just
one of them ones where you're like, how has that just happened?
Ow, yeah.
Because in another situation, I mean, that sounds to me that one, you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a lot of good, essentially, soldiers at the top.
Yeah.
What are the Taliban like? What are they like, professional-wise?
Yeah, I mean, you see movies now, they look like they're just running around in rags and they're unorganised. They are good soldiers. They've been doing this their whole life. They're born, they go to the madrasas, their fathers were in the Mujahideen. These are skilled marksmen that know the ground, they're quick. And I did 2 full combat tours out there on the ground on both of them, and you barely ever see them. You barely see them. You see these reports of 300 confirmed dead in this firefight. How do you confirm that? When I see these massive numbers, I always question it, because on Hare 5 certainly we were doing a lot of door-to-door fighting, and you'd get glimpses sometimes. You'd sometimes find them afterwards, but like actually when they're fighting, you don't see them. But they can see us always because we can hear them on the radio. We can listen, and they can see us and we can't see them. So they're skilled. They know what they're up to.
So how are we? Well, I mean, we just talked about it then, like the kind of almost reactive skill of a Royal Marine, and we've had guys on with the British Army, and we've talked about similar stuff. But when they move in and they take areas, how do we? I mean, there's a good example in the Op Silver, which you guys kind of got stitched up with.
Yeah.
That was about retaking Sangin. So why? One, we've just reacted to fire there and reacted to an ambush and attack. But then when we go in, how are we overcoming their kind of supremacy of local knowledge and living and breathing it since they were born on an op like Op Silver, where we have to retake something? What's the difference?
I mean, the tactics of the whole thing and how we had to execute. So we were ground holding. In 2005, we were just trying to hold ground. So we would take some ground and we would just try and hold it for as long as we could, to then try and build governance and peace and security.
Right.
You can't build peace and security when you're fighting every day, because people aren't going to use shops and live a normal life when we're going toe to toe with the Taliban every day. So all they had to do was keep probing us until we eventually gave up, which is what happened. You know, eventually we had to pull out, and all that ground we took.
Of Sangin?
Well, of Helmand Province.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, in total.
Yeah.
Afghanistan. So I mean, all that ground we took. So Sangin in 2006, 7. I was in Natalie North in 11. That's all gone now. You know, that's all gone back. We saw some positive change, and we also saw things never change.
On both tours, or just on...
I'm just talking about the Afghan campaign. You know, there was little pockets of success, but that was quickly marred by real hotspots of violence and death.
Talked about Op Silver. I want to talk to you about it, because it's I suppose it's an example of the chaotic nature, the way things can change in a heartbeat, especially when you're in theatres like that. So you guys were ready to leave. So you'd done Herrick 5, you'd done your 6 months there.
Yeah.
You'd literally handed your weapons back in, and then you got told that go get them back.
Yeah.
I mean,
people say literally all the time, don't they? As like punctuation.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is literal. So we'd handed the weapons in, handed our magazines in, we'd taken the body armour off, and we were literally sitting on the flight line waiting for the Black Hawks to come in and take us home.
Oh.
Like, lads are greasing up, they're covering themselves in oil, like naked sunbathing. They're going to get back into Plymouth and they're going to be Adonises. So like the mindset is gone, that tension that you hold, that like readiness, that hyper alertness you hold was starting to like dissipate. Boss comes out and he's like, lads, good news, we've got one more up. And we're like, oh, nice one, boss. And he's like, nah, Jen, re-bomb, go redraw your weapons. Sangin's just been smashed. I think it was the Fusiliers that were in there then. And they were just getting hammered from all sides, because the district centre where the Sangin patrol base was dominated on all sides by the village. It was really badly placed. It was in the bottom of a bowl. So the Taliban could just hit them from everywhere. And so we had to go back in and retake Sangin and push it out. I mean, Sangin is the centre of all evil. It always was. It still is now, Anyone that served in Afghan, you talk about Sangin, it's one of those you weren't there, man, kind of places. And so we got back in the wagon. I think we spent maybe 12, 15 hours battle prepping, orders. It was all, like, from a memory anyway. Memory's a funny thing, but, like, I think it was about 15 hours, we were on the way home, and then we just literally ditched all our kit, put the fighting kit back on, into battle prep, eating as much as we can, orders, in the wagons, and off we go.
Did the lads switch back on?
I mean, there was some chuntering.
Yeah, of course there was.
And there's all the stuff you see in movies, like there was a guy who's going to be home for his kid's birthday, and then he got blown up by an IED, and there was some of that stuff. And but the lads are good, they're professional soldiers. I was really lucky to serve with Royal Marines. I mean, the British military in general, but I'm especially proud to have been a Royal Marine, and just to watch them like ready to rock and roll again real quick after the obvious chuntering. But as the minute they were back in those vehicles, it was game time again. They crossed the whitewash and it was game time.
It was a big deal, wasn't it, that Rita? Because I was chatting to my brother about it. He never speaks about anything unless I ask him. And I said, oh, you're coming on, and he was there. And he said, oh, yeah, because he came on Herrick 6 with the Anglians, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he rolled into Sangin at the same time as you, and he was building all the fobs with all the HESCO fobs. They built 3. He was like, oh, they were all battling, and we was out building.
That's exactly right. Because we were trying to create a perimeter around Sangin, which your brother had been building. Yeah. But we were just trying to like flush the enemy.
There was a lot of different elements, weren't they, going on to create that?
It was a huge up. Yeah, huge. Like two battle groups, I think.
Well, how many people would that have been?
So 2 battle groups would be about 2,000 people.
Oh, right.
And there was a task force of Americans clearing the Sangin Valley from the south as well.
Would you have had things like air support as well in this kind of thing, like Apache and all that?
Yeah, we were always pretty well looked after. Once troops are in combat, once a tick is declared, troops in combat, troops in contact, air support's normally ready, available. And the mission was basically to drive into the middle of Sangin, get out of the wagons, the bulletproof, bomb-proof wagons, get out of them, and then just ink blot out, and just fight through the village, and just clear it, push them all back from the district centre. Anything above 2 stories, we had to level. So that's why we had the engineers with us. So
okay.
anything that was a firing point, as we were clearing, we would bring the firing point down so that we made Sangin a single story, like the whole of Sangin. And then, again, my boss, I really did love my OC, Colonel Murchison. He was Major Murchison at the time, but he said my orders were to get to the bridge and hold until relieved. And I just like looked at it. I thought, it's a bite.
Yeah.
Because the film A Bridge Too Far, where they all die, their mission was to hold until relieved. And there was 30 of us, and Task Force Fury was 101st Airborne, and they were coming up from the south, with all the American horsepower, and we just had to hold the bridge until they got there. I say just.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be a sort of a 24, 36-hour occupation in this bridge, and then they were meant to come up. They got mega bogged in, and I think it was about a week that we were there, but we were already prepared for 2 days, and it was like a bazaar, shops, looking out into the wadi and then the bridge. And so we were making Sanger positions in these shops, and we were like basically looting them to like find things we could turn into sandbags. And we found bags of wheat and stuff. And we were making sandbag positions, and this was in the daytime, and all's good. And we'd run out of bar mines, and there were still loads of firing points. So we're getting like gas canisters and claymores, and like stacking the basement of these places, then hitting the claymore and just leveling buildings around us. And then of course, darkness starts to drop. And then you're like, okay, here we go. And then sure enough, just green and red tracer all over the place. And we started scrapping then. And I think we didn't stop. We just didn't stop scrapping. Like sporadically, firefights sort of go up and down. We just didn't stop for about 3-4 days, waiting for Task Force Fury. Constantly didn't get resupply because we only took enough for 2 days. And there's a picture of me at home, again with Corporal Kibler Matthews at the end of it. I just sat against this, what was a shop, and it's now a Sanger position, and I'd just never seen tiredness on me quite like it, just
like real fatigue,
exhaustion, and obviously from the whole op, like the whole 6 months or 5 months, but then this as well, and then Task Force Fury finally turns up. Again, there's another picture of me on the bridge, greeting the OC, their CO, and there's like javelin cases everywhere, and there's just link all over the road. And he's like, how many of you are here, son? I was like, 30. He's like, holy fuck, you guys are crazy. And he had like 1,500 men with him to take over like our one position.
Just 1,500?
Yeah.
And there was 30
a full battle group, and there was just 30 Royal Marines on this bridge. Yeah.
Mate, it's so intense. And you came back from there. Did you adjust all right when you got back?
We spoke on the phone the other day, and I thought I was fine till we spoke on the phone.
Yeah.
Been a much more reflective person than I was back then. I've always said, like, I was totally fine. But actually, listening to Wisey, talking to you, I probably wasn't having the best time. I came back, I had a good tour, I had a good report and all that. And I was just wild. But I thought that was just me, but I felt bulletproof. I was a pain in the ass to be around, definitely when I had a drink on board. I was definitely drinking too much. My next job was at the Commander Training Centre, training recruits, and I was getting it all wrong, really wrong. I was overly aggressive with the recruits. I thought it had to be my way because I'd been at war. Like, you don't know what you're getting ready for. I wasn't bonding very well certainly with senior officers. I was all right with my mates, my peer group, but I was mega tight with my sergeant and my training corporals, like this little tight-knit group, and like us against the world again. And that's what I was craving, this like tightness. And I was probably, pretty edgy. And I genuinely at the time, I didn't notice it. But I look back on a lot now, actually. I look back on Afghan, how I was, how the op was, how I was when we got back. And yeah, I was definitely having a rough time. It's just, we didn't talk about it then. That you were either a nightmare or you weren't a nightmare.
Yeah.
There wasn't a reason for it. And then, if I was in some of my senior officers' position now, when I came back from Afghan, I saw like, this guy was a really good troop commander with really good reports in Afghan and an effective person. And now he's just a constant pain in my arse.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay,
What's going on?
what's going on here? You know, the first thing you do when the lads have a big dip in performance is you check what's happening at home.
Okay.
Like if they've got problems with their wife, money trouble, to make such a polar change.
Is that right? So you go back to, if there's problems professionally, you go back to the home life. What's going on?
Yeah,
You do.
I just check, you know,
There's leadership.
everything all right? You know, are you okay
Yeah.
at home? You know, as the missus, because for such a dynamic change in someone so quick, something normally has to have shifted.
You've been there. You've done pretty much a year and a half in officer training, so an aggressive kind of switched on form of training where I don't mean violence, I mean aggressive, you know, like you're learning, you've got to get prepped for things like Afghan. Then you go to Afghan in, you know, arguably some of the West or most fierce fighting that there's been for decades and decades. And then you go straight to recruit training after that. I mean, there's no wonder why that kind of, there's a spillover there, but actually recognising, especially now, recognising that there might have been something not quite right, you know, in your behaviour.
Yeah.
And being self-aware is especially now, like, you know, looking back. I mean, that culminated in you getting shit reports and being a bit of a
I went in on an A- and I came out on a C-. No one as an officer gets a C- report. I mean, that's a dead man's report. And you know, it ended. I was in a lot of trouble. I'd ended up in a recruit pouring a cup of tea on his head. You know, misjudged by me. It wasn't meant to hurt anyone, but misjudged by me. And I was almost facing Colchester at the time. You know, certainly a court martial. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. I had to pay some penance, but yeah, I was not in a good place back then. But I didn't know I wasn't in a good place.
You did a bit of, you know, it was a little bit self-destructive maybe, but not intentionally. And you then went and did some op-tag instructing, and you then got back on your mortars course. What is it, just really briefly? What would we mean by a mortars course? What are you doing in that?
So I'm going to learn to be the mortar troop commander, so to control the troop and mortars,
Cool.
as part of the battle group artillery plan.
And then, I mean, that came into fruition then because you then went back to the Royal Marines as an operator and deployed on Herrick 14. He was in Nadi Ali North in the summer. What did you go as?
So deployed as they call it the Ops 2. So basically to run the ops room, to run the current battle.
Yeah.
So, you know, deploying a very different mindset really as to be running an ops room, that kind of thing.
Because, I mean, sorry, I think I missed something there. Because you'd kind of recovered a little bit as well, hadn't you? You'd kind of got back onto being a good boy again.
Yeah. I was back in people's good books. Yeah. But not through anything apart from time and processing and, you know, it was just time at that
Some
point.
opportunity as well, which I suppose the military gives you as well, that opportunity to improve and redeem yourself.
Yeah.
So you went as an ops, well, part of the ops room, did half a tour in the ops room there. And what was the second part of that tour like?
So, Herrick 11, Herrick 14, Natalie North was 2011. And it was just a very violent tour. We lost a lot of guys, you know, we lost 7 blokes in total. And just to the east of Natalie was a place called Loimander. And we were asked the unit was asked to fly in and take the area of Loimander to take the fighting away from the district centre so we could try and rebuild shopping and, you know, the bazaars. And 2 Marines died doing that, and the company commander was badly hurt. And he was Kazivaked. And then there was a need to create some kind of body to replace the company that had done the initial assault. And we were all out of companies, you know, because the four close combat companies were doing ground holding already. So we had to form a new one and find a company commander. I say company commander, you know, it was me basically, but I became an acting company commander. But it's not a proper company. It was just a company-sized body of ragtag people.
How many blokes is that?
90 to 100 guys.
Right. Yeah.
I had troop and a half of Royal Marines. I had some from a cavalry company, and then just assorted individual augmentees to make this body.
The Magnificent Seven. Just like
And I was like, right, guys, follow me. And we didn't even have a name, so I was just OC Toki, and Toki was the name of a compound, like a compound where people lived, and they called it Toki. I can't remember why. So I was just OC Toki with these multiples.
You guys came under a lot of flack after that, didn't you? Like from the press and from the outside in.
4-2 Commander did, yeah, and that was really hard to take. Yeah, they said we took an overly aggressive stance. There was a lot of infighting in the Royal Marines. A lot of criticism of my commanding officer, who's a good friend of mine, because there was essentially quite stable environments around us. Natalie North wasn't stable, and they blamed us for that. And I don't want to sound like a Vietnam vet, like you weren't there, man, but I was on the ground, and the fighting was the fighting. So to come back from a very aggressive place to criticism from within your family was pretty tough.
There's a war memorial, isn't there? I think it's in Kabul. I think I saw a picture of it the other week, and so one of the lads who we work with, we used to be in the Royal Marines, and his best mate died on that. So Sam Alexander. So
Sam Alexander MC.
But if you look at that memorial, it's just like RM on that 2011 tour. A lot of lads died, a lot of lads got injured. We've heard from Terry Brazier in episode 2 about Nadia Ali North, and I think he took over from you guys, I think. And it was fierce. Can we talk about Marine? Not talk about him, but Marine was part of that, wasn't he? We don't want to say anything else about that, but there was a lot of chaos going on. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of, war fighting going on.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like the criticism was unjust? I think you've alluded to it.
Yeah.
There.
I know I was there, and it felt right at the time.
Yeah.
Like, it did. It didn't feel overly aggressive. We were under rules of engagement 429 Alpha, which is a warfighting rules of engagement, when everyone else was under Card Alpha, which is a self-defensive rules of engagement.
Right.
So there was recognition through the brigade HQ and up to the regional command that Natalie North was different at that time.
Yeah.
And when there was 4 companies in the very small area of Natalie North, we could hold it quite peacefully. Once we were told to push east and take this huge area that had never been occupied, we were thinly spread. It became the summer. That's the traditional fighting season. We just didn't have the manpower. We just didn't have the force to hold it. So it got violent, and it got really violent. And then it didn't feel like we were winning. So yeah, I think the criticism was unjust, because it's easy to sit back and command a battle when you're not in it. But there was a lot of things that went on that shouldn't, that Marine A thing. There was competition between the commanding officer of my unit and the one to the south that became really toxic. And it's fucking hard to come home from that, into... I imagine, it's not as bad, but, when the Vietnam Marines were ripping out to being protested and spat at in the streets of the United States, I can see how that must have felt. It was nowhere like that for us.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
But there wasn't the praise.
There was no ticker tape parade, was there, during that time?
No, and then it spilled into the press, and the Royal Marines was publicly debating in the press, which was, uncomfortable.
What was a normal day like there then, especially towards the end of that?
In Toki?
Yeah.
Wake up, get shot at, shoot back, try and patrol, undoubtedly have an IED strike of some sort, come back in, get shot at, get dark, prayer would happen, we'd sleep, wake up in the morning, repeat. It's really hard to lead blokes when there's no outcome. And I was only there, for a part of the time. The company commanders and the other leaders that were there the whole time, lads were like patting the floor in front of them with their feet, just waiting for it to
What was
explode.
morale like then?
It's hard. It's hard, isn't it? The Royal Marines amongst the most professional people I've ever met in all walks of life. They take soldiering very, very seriously. Very serious about being Marines. That's who they are. But you can see it slipping, like the morale, because they're starting to lose track of the purpose of like, what are we doing here? Like, is this worth dying for? Is this worth losing a leg for? And you can see them coming to the conclusion that the only thing worth dying for is their mates. But what collectively were they there to do? And it's hard to maintain that when you're just bogged down in a minefield with no tangible outcome apart from holding the ground.
You came back 2011. You didn't come back in the normal sense. Did you get medevaced?
I didn't know.
No.
We had an American ATO. I forget what ATO was, the bomb disposal guys, but the Americans called them something different.
Right.
And when we were in Toki, it was mark and avoid. So if we found something, put a pin in it and avoid, because it was just IEDs everywhere. There was no point trying to clear it. Because if we did clear it, they'd put it back there anyway, and the risk was too high. We'd have to wait there for ages, so we'd just mark it, GPS fix, and literally put a pin in the floor, and just stay away from it.
That's not normal, is
No.
it? Do you know what I mean? Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Carry on.
And I'd only been there about 2-3 days. It might even have been my first day on the ground. And we'd reported, as you do, you put it in the sit report, mark and avoid, and they wanted to send a call sign in to clear it. We're like, you fucking kidding? It's the middle of the day. It's real hot. It was all wrong, especially when there was mines everywhere. We're going to clear this whole thing. And they sent this American call sign. And Staff Sergeant DeVille, who I'd never met, landed with his little team, came forward. He went and cleared the device, and he came back. And he thought it was like an episode of Hurt Locker. I don't know what he was thinking, but he was collecting parts off IEDs, signatures, triggers, bits and pieces.
What, as souvenirs? What do you mean? I don't...
Yeah, I mean, that's what I assume. And he said he'd forgotten to pick up the trigger. And I can only assume Hurt Locker was at the time that they were collecting triggers as part of, like, whether it's analysis, work, whether it's souvenirs, I don't know. And he wanted to go back for it. It's like, mate, you ain't going back to that site. You never cover the same ground twice. He said, I'm going back to it. And he turned, he took a pace, like, it's hard to remember exactly, but I can remember exactly where I was standing. This tree here, compound behind me, and then boom, he just disappeared, just vaporised himself. And no further than that wall is. It's only like a metre or two. And I mean, I was so lucky. I'm here with all my arms and my legs. All I got was death. And we don't know. We don't know if it was buried deep, so the charge went up. We don't know if it was a partial, bit of both. We don't know if I'm just a jammy bugger.
Yeah.
And I was wearing Staff Sergeant DeVille, various forms, and we bagged him up, what we could find of him, and there was walking.
I mean, it must have been a big, there must have been a lot in there for him to do that. That's not that's not a couple of hundred grand. There's a
it wasn't
a lot going on there.
It wasn't a leg breaker. It was it tore him apart. And there was walking wounded to the other side, so there was enough shrapnel to.
Oh, okay.
I was just lucky.
Yeah.
There wasn't soldering skill. There was no skill. That was out of my control.
Yeah.
And we bagged him up and we brought him back, and we were waiting for the Kazibat, and I didn't request the Kazibat. I was fine. I was beep and like covered but okay. And we waited for the healer to come in, but they said because he was already dead and the walking wounded were going to stay, we were going to treat in place. They couldn't come for quite a few hours. And I'd ordered one of the multiple commanders to take the body over into the far corner of the compound and cover it up, because you cover the dead, you don't want everyone seeing it that doesn't need to see it. But when the helo came in again, it blew the bivvy right off him, and then everyone was getting ready to, everyone saw it. But I came back anyway, and yeah, because I was in the incident, they had to do tests on me when I got home. But this is at the end of the tour. I stayed on the ground.
Oh, you stayed there? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I stayed on the ground, and I came back into the ops room at the end, and I ran
Yeah.
the ops room for the last few weeks. But when I got back, they wanted me to go and have certain tests at Derriford Hospital. When you're involved in blasts, it can move your body parts around.
The shockwave of it.
And of course, it can make you mutton deaf.
Mm.
And they sort of cover my head in anodes, and they pass things between the anodes to see how you are reacting. Because if you've been in the military, you do that, like press the button hearing test. You can just keep pressing it.
Yeah.
And I've been cheating that for a long time because my ears weren't great from Heriot 5. But then, they're like, you're deaf, and I'd go to the medical board and be told by a naval admiral that I was no longer fit to lead Royal Marines, which was about the most painful sentence I've ever heard in my life, and the last time I can remember crying.
Was it?
Mm.
You were medically discharged end of September 2012. You then went and worked in the city for what was about 3 years. Good at the job, but just not really getting what you got from ops and the Royal Marines and everything else. You didn't feel like it was that purpose and that meaning, and there was something missing. You dotted about a little bit and did a bit of work with some other military charities, and then you got, I suppose, the job that you was looking for, and you became the boss, the CEO of Team Rubicon. What is it?
It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. That's what it is. Like you said, I was in the city, good at it, but not loving it. Then I was at Help for Heroes, which was good for a while. Then again, I wasn't loving that. But I got made redundant from there, and my jamminess continued. And I saw the CEO's job for Team Rubicon, and we essentially repurpose the skills of the military. So we take predominantly ex-military forces and retrain them into disaster responders. So we're an international disaster response organisation, hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, using the skills of the military for good again, giving them that sense of purpose, that community, the camaraderie, that higher purpose that we all once believed in. We're giving them that again, but for the good of the survivors of disaster, home and abroad.
How did it all start?
Started out in the States 9 years ago in the wake of the Haiti earthquake. There's a guy called Jake Wood, who's the CEO of Team Rubicon USA. He's 6'6", he's an ex-NFL player or American football player. He's real handsome, and I hate standing next to him. I'm short and fat, my broken nose. I'm just like you, Jake. But he was a military blogger at the time, which was big, and he had quite a big following. And he was like, right, I'm looking for like-minded people to come to Haiti with me. So a load of ex-USMC that never met each other just got together, flew to Dominican Republic, and walked to the Haitian border, and just going to cross in. They just had bags of medical supplies.
So there was no organisation?
No organisation. Just spontaneous volunteers. Everything we tell people not to do, actually.
Yeah.
But they had bags of medical supplies.
Sometimes you need a rogue, though, don't you?
And, out of that rogueness came this great organisation. And they were told not to cross the border because no one could protect them. Like, they couldn't be guaranteed their safety, or they could get out. And they went anyway. And this is where the Rubicon part of the name comes from, crossing the Rubicon, like when Caesar took his legions across the river. So it means that going past the point of no return. And that's where the genesis of the name comes from, which I didn't know till I got this job either. And they did the up, or they did this deployment together, and they got back to the US, and they were like, there's something in this, high-intensity warfare, that chaos that you see in the immediate after effects of the need for just output focus, mission focus, and bring order to chaos. We're good at this. So they formed Team Rubicon, and they just started from there. It's now massive in the States, 90,000 military volunteers.
All volunteers, are they? Some employed.
They've got about 150 employed people, and they've got about 90,000.
150, yes.
Yeah, they're big. 35 million a year they do in the States.
Wow.
And we were the first international offshoot here 3 years ago. And taking all of the good stuff of the States, the concept, but also making it British, making it suitable to our culture, our people, but also what does Britain's disaster response force need to be? Because in the UK we have flooding, but we're a resilient country. We tend to look after our own disasters. So we are very internationally focused. So we've got teams out in Indonesia right now in the aftermath of the earthquake and the tsunami. We work in Nepal. Basically, we have full global reach depending on access.
So the Indonesia stuff that happened, what was that, a couple of months ago?
Yeah, the earthquake was 6 weeks ago. Something there's been two. There was Lombok first, just at the end of the summer, and then there was Sulawesi a few weeks ago.
Have you been out since the first one?
I haven't. I'm going out.
No, not
in
you,
a couple of
but
weeks.
the team.
Yeah, we had a team out in Lombok, and then we've got a team out in Sulawesi now. We've normally got a recce team in the air within 12 hours of disaster to like fly in, and the whole point of Team Rubicon is to take a military approach to disaster. So whilst life is normal, something happens, life is just catastrophically changed. That's our space. While all the big organisations are figuring out how to get in, who's going to have primacy, like people are suffering every day. So we're dropping light, rapid teams into that to get out into the communities, map the disaster, create situational awareness, put down community level hubs of infrastructure, so some power so they can charge a phone, text their family, tell them they're alive,
Right.
water purification, maybe power a clinic, put up connectivity masts, so like community hubs that people can come into, get shelter, get water, get power, and we're off again. So we then create a situational awareness that we can show all of the other agencies they're landing in. This is where the need is the greatest. This is the most affected area. This is what
Are
they
you the
need.
first ones in then?
We're trying to be always, yeah.
That's incredible.
That's our doctrinally pure model. It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah.
But doctrinally pure will be the first in, we're out, we're clearing the routes, we're creating the metaphorical landing pads for the big organisations so that we're trying to accelerate the whole aid effort just to get it to the people that need it the most, the quickest.
What stuff, when the guys first kind of get in there, what are they finding? Like, especially in this earthquake and the tsunami and whatnot. What like, I'm on about, you can get as graphic or not as you want about this, but what are the guys actually seeing?
Well, I mean, the Sulawesi tsunami that's just happened, Palu, by the time they're landing on, 24 hours after, I mean, there's dead bodies and mass graves being dug. They're having to do mass graves to try and stop the spread of disease. So our responders, that first wave out, that first 2-week wave that we send out, that's a very special, resilient kind of person we're sending. And we're not exclusively ex-military, but you can see why those that have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, or kinetic environments, why they are suitable for this, because they have a level of resilience, and they've seen this before. So it's not the first time that they've seen this kind of devastation. But landing on, there's public order, there's fear, there's terror, there's dead bodies around. We saw in Palu ground liquefaction. So the ground isn't solid that the houses were built on. It's dust and mud and compacted. So the ground just turned to liquid and ate up 2 whole communities. 5,000 people still missing, which we assume are just sucked into the earth.
Like a quicksand kind of.
Exactly like a quicksand. And talking to the recce team, once you get to the area affected, you put your foot on it and it starts to suck you in, like quicksand.
So it's like a natural minefield then, but almost worse.
Yeah. And what?
So you have to, when you say mapping earlier on, sorry, you mean physically mapping?
Yeah. So we're
like pen on paper, right? Don't go there. This is the.
We're using drones. We're using physical people recce, and we're just creating situational awareness. So like this part of the map, this is what's affected. Don't go here. This is it. There's people here with nothing. It looks like this whole village has been sucked away. So, because at that period in time, no one knows what's happening out in the sticks, because everyone can get to the sort of the urban centres, if you like, but it's out in the deeper communities that's where we try and get to as quickly as possible.
And who's volunteering for this? Like, give me, if you had 10 people on the ground or 20 people on the ground, literally the individuals within that, who are they? Like, is it beyond people's, could I join? Could my mates join?
Yeah.
Like, who's in that 10?
There's a role for everyone in Team Rubicon. Not everyone is that first wave in the deployment, though. You're sending out someone that's very good at political diplomacy. You're sending out people that are very good at being self-sufficient, because we're dropping them into complete uncertainty. We don't know what you're going to find, where you're going to be living, how you're going to get around, what the situation's going to be like. So that's a resilient person. So we sent out, on this first wave, there was a former Fusilier Sergeant Major. There was a submarine commander. There was a former Royal Engineer officer, a former policeman, and that was the first wave in to establish the tasks. And then there's a follow-on. We try and work in 2-week waves. So that first group, very resilient, self-sufficient. They're comfortable being uncomfortable, and they are resourceful because they're creating the task lines. They are sending back to us what they need. They've got to be very, very capable people. And the next wave, similar, but less about the self-sufficiency, more about what tasks we're going to achieve. So then you're looking at specialists, drone pilots. It might be we need child safeguarding officers. It's very varied what we bring to bear. Water purification, power, etc. And then the longer term stuff, where the resilience you need could be a little bit less because the dead body bit is done, and now we're into the slightly longer term response. The 3 to 6 to 8 weeks, and then we see a different part of the volunteer base being suitable for that piece as well.
So you got like the immediate rebuild. So the disaster relief, that initial wave, disaster relief, like what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Let's sort this out. Let's get something in place, some infrastructure, and then it's like the longer term need. So you got that Maslow's pyramid.
Yeah.
You're starting to building that up almost. Is that right? Is that what I'm
basically.
getting?
But we will have sort of expended our organisational energy by about 6 to 8 weeks. We'll have burnt through the volunteers. We'll have burnt through what we can do. But the big organisation should be up and running by then.
Yeah.
So in a doctrinally pure, we've done that for 6 to 8 weeks. We're handing over. Then we're getting out of the way to let them do their stuff. But what tends to happen is the media's attention shifts. And so then a lot of the humanitarian organisations also shift their attention. So once that's happened, we tend to reinsert again at the back end and look at longer term disaster risk reduction, longer term recovery projects around communities. So we're looking to leverage our input as much as possible. So schools, orphanages, clinics, community resilience, community mitigation, that kind of work. So we'll insert on the back end again and work longer term with government agencies.
Is it costly then, this for you as an organisation? And if it is, how are you getting funding for this?
Everything costs, right?
Yeah.
Even doing good can't be free. We were funded initially by HM Treasury. They gave us some seed capital from the LIBOR grants when they find the banks. And now we're charitably funded in all the normal charity ways: major gifts, corporates, crowdfunders, people doing cake sales. And when we deploy on up, it costs us roughly £2,500 per person for 2 weeks with no kit. Once we start talking about sending expensive water purification kit in, that can be 50 grand a time. So it's expensive, and we can only send what we can afford to pay for.
Right, and then the way you're speaking though, you're doing a lot for not much. Like especially those first couple of waves in. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Just to calm the situation and just to bring some kind of order to absolute disaster.
Yeah.
But you're sending a month later, you're sending this water purification, whatever it is. 3 weeks later, you're sending this water purification unit. What's that doing? 100 people, 1,000 people? What's it?
Yeah, no, it's doing 8,000 people an hour. Or sorry, it's doing 8,000 litres an hour.
Right. Okay.
So.
An hour. Right.
8,000 litres of contaminated water to pure water.
Yeah.
And it's doing that 23 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
If you look at maybe 10 litres of water per person per day, we're churning out serious amounts of water.
Yeah.
That's off each machine, so we can scale that. And we look at the people that got access into Palu and Sulawesi. We're one of the very few international organisations that did it. On the water task, we're going to outperform World Vision and Save the Children. And our annual budget is a rounding error compared to theirs. But because of the people we have, like our grey shirts, our disaster responders are our single greatest asset. They do so much for so little, which keeps our costs down. They don't want hotels and,
But they want the purpose and the meaning.
They want the purpose. They want to achieve stuff. So because of them, we can achieve really great things on minimal budget. And the military approach is doing the most with the least, right? Just enough, just in time was always military planning. And we take that forward.
How do people, let's say me, former Royal Engineer, former firefighter, there's loads of people like me, there's guys who are on this podcast that I'm sure would be keen for this. How do you join? What's the process?
It's pretty simple. Get to the website, teamrubiconuk.org, and it's a Join Here tab, and you just put your details in and you register. And then once you've registered as a volunteer, you're invited to come on an induction. And that's just 2 days. You look at us, we look at you. And then you get to see into the organisation and how you can specialise. I mean, an engineer and a firefighter, you are like prime time for us.
I'm shit though, so.
And you can then specialise to be an international responder. You know, that's the pointy end of what we were just discussing.
Yeah.
You can be a training deliverer, both abroad and in the UK. You can be a domestic operator. You can be a drone pilot, chainsaw operator. There's various different things you can specialise in. And we provide all of the training. So it doesn't cost you anything to come and train, apart from time and commitment.
Yeah, and it's doable. So, like, because when I first left, I wanted a bit more that purpose. And I looked at a few disasters, and it was just like, there's no way I'm getting in any of this stuff. Like, it just felt like there was a closed door. This was like mid-2000s. But this is doable, is it, for a squaddie or a marine or whatever?
We're trying to bring people to the humanitarian sector that have previously had the door shut on them. Because the humanitarian sector has sort of held the steely-eyed dealers of death at arm's bay because they see us as the cause of humanitarian disasters. But there's so much hard skill in that cohort. We are creating the organisation for them to bring that to bear for the good of survivors. And it's absolutely doable. And more than doable, I think we will increase the sector.
Just really briefly, and I'll kind of skim over it, but there is aftercare involved with this as well. You don't just leave, especially those first responders the first volunteers. Yeah. You don't just leave them home and dry when they come back, and there is a process within your organisation that's kind of almost world leading, really, in trauma, trauma management and looking after those people as well. And we're kind of coming to the end of it now. So, but I want people to know out there that you do look after people, and it's on the forefront of your leadership and your planning and the organisation's kind of long-term future as well. Amazing story, mate, and the calibre of person who you are and who's coming into this organisation now at a vital time when things are all over the place with funding, and it just seems like these disasters are coming thick and fast. Just to recap then, how can people fund what you guys are doing?
Click on the Donate Here page on the website and donate. Easy. Or do a marathon for us, a cake sale, whatever it is. Send us a cheque. I'd take it all.
Mate, thanks so much.
No, thanks for having me on, buddy.
And we will leave it there.